international pressure is mounting on Israel after it announced plans to build thousands of new homes in the West Bank. France's foreign ministry called the project a serious violation of international law. Germany joined in condemning the plan as well. If Britain did decide to do more, what might that include and how could it work? Let's speak to Nick Westcott, who is a former diplomat and a professor at the School of Oriental and African Studies in London. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Why do you think France and Germany have condemned this move and as yet the UK hasn't?
France and Germany have stuck to their position of saying the only solution is a two-state solution, and the Israeli proposal to put up new settlements in an area called E1, which basically then cuts Palestinian area of the West Bank in two and makes it not a viable state. They're saying this would simply destroy, and in fact, Bezalel Mostrich, the finance minister who announced it, made explicit that he wanted to destroy any prospect of a two-state solution in the West Bank or in Palestine. So the UK government, I think, is still thinking about this. It has already committed itself to recognise a two-state solution, and I would expect that it will join the other two quite soon.
I mean, it's clear that the Netanyahu government isn't listening to what the UK has to say. In fact, it's been pretty fed up with the suggestion that in September, the UK government could recognise a Palestinian state. Does it require the UK government response to be stronger? Some people suggest, for example, completely stopping selling weapons at all to Israel. What are your thoughts?
The UK is trying to balance its relationship with its European partners and its relationship with the US, which has stood foursquare behind Israel throughout the crisis in Gaza and behind what it is trying to do in the West Bank. And the Europeans and most of the rest of the world have condemned it roundly as both contravening international humanitarian law and contrary to international law in terms of the prospects of a Palestinian state. So that's why the UK is trying to balance it. I agree with you that Israel appears to pay no attention to international opinion except that of the United States. It has continually flouted the international rules-based system, if you like. It's a serious threat to the structure of the international community, what Israel has been doing. But for now, the US appears to want to continue to stand foursquare behind Israel, and therefore Israel feels it can ignore international opinion.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that, whether the Netanyahu government almost feels emboldened by Donald Trump being in the White House, because, this idea of building these thousands of homes in the West Bank in this specific area is an idea that has been frozen in the past because of pressure from previous US presidents. Do you feel that Donald Trump is effectively giving Israel the green light to go ahead with this now?
There are two things going on here. One, yes, the Trump administration has made very clear that it will continue to support the Israeli government, more or less, come what may. But secondly, this policy is being pursued by the Netanyahu government because he feels it's essential for him to stay in power, for this government to keep itself in power, through alliance with the right-wingers, which he cobbled together after the last election and which has held ever since. Remember, before that, Israel had more or less a general election every year, but this one has lasted, and it lasts because it is pursuing a policy that the far right supports, and therefore the coalition has held together. But this is increasingly dividing Israeli society. So whatever the position of the US, whatever the position of the Netanyahu government, Israeli society is increasingly divided over what its own government is doing. And opposition, there is a general strike, I think, today taking place from people protesting about the situation in Gaza and this proposal to take over not just Gaza City, but also create new settlements on the West Bank. So Israel itself is starting to pull itself apart. And this is a high risk for Israel. It has always existed through its national solidarity against all comers. And it would be ironic if Hamas succeeded in dividing Israel hitherto they've remained united in the struggle against Hamas. But increasingly, the government's position is putting that at risk.
Nick Westcott, thank you for joining us this morning. He's a former diplomat and professor at the School of Oriental and African Studies in London.